For this one, instead of doing the whole background, I want to show you how I would do the same sort of thing inside of the silhouette. So if you have a silhouette you want to paint the inside of, sort of like the Princess Leia example I showed, you can just add water inside the silhouette. And you want to be careful with this. And I look around, I tilt my head to the side, and I use the light so that I'm making sure I'm staying inside my lines, because, you know, water's clear and stuff, making it rather difficult to see otherwise. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time. I'm gonna just leave it here for now. I've only done up to about here because the water will start to dry. And if I do the whole horse, he'll be dry at the tail already. So now I'm gonna go in and grab some color. I'm gonna start with black, I think, today. Getting it wet first, dip, drip, and I'm gonna drop in a little black. And if it's not moving enough, I need more water. I don't want this pitch black. I want to see a little bit through the paint for this technique. And the paint should follow wherever you put the water. With a wet on wet technique, if you kept the water inside your lines, the paint will follow it for the most part, and you'll have to help it move around. Now I'm going to mix colors. So while the black is wet, I'm cleaning my brush, going back into a blue because I'm in a galaxy sky kind of mood today. And I'm going to just touch in some blue and let it just follow where the water goes. I'm not going to overwork it. Then I'm going to grab a little violet and do the same thing. Just going to touch it in and let it be. Wherever it flows, it flows. Don't do too much to it. Now I'm going to start carrying the paint down into a leg and another. And start again with the black or whatever colors you choose to use. Maybe I want a little more black in here. And I'm going to clean and go back into my other colors that I'm using. So be very careful, and there's a lot of water on your brush that you don't push it outside your lines. It'll be very difficult to get cleaned up, and you'll have to basically paint your whole background, or you can cut it out. So if it's messy on the edges, you can always cut it out, right? I'm going to bring a little blue into the other foot. Does not look blue. So the black takes over, so if you're using black, be careful that you don't use too much if you want to see the other colors. That's better. Okay, now I'm going to continue adding water to kind of get the paint moving, soften up the edge so I don't see any harsh edges as I shift from one spot to the next. So the paint is sort of following wherever it's wet. So even though I just used water, I didn't add any extra paint. I had so much black over there that it's following me around, which is fine because as long as the paper's getting wet, then you're good. It's okay if it has a touch of color because I'm going to be adding a lot of color anyway, so I'm not really worried about that. And actually now I can see my water, which works. If you were doing a light color like yellow, you would not want that to happen, but that's not me. Going in with black again. Okay, cleaning my brush, blotting my brush. Blue it is. I'm just sort of dragging it around where I think it might look nice. I'm not overthinking it. I'm gonna go back with my purple and touch it where I think I need it. Okay, now I gotta go back in again with water. And this should continue the paint moving down the legs. A little black, not too much because I know it's gonna take over. Clean, little blue, pushing the black back because I have so much water on my brush at this point. So be very careful about flooding out. That's why we just try to keep the water inside the space. I'm going to go to my purple, dip and drip on the lip. So as it's drying, keep an eye on it and see if there's anything you need to add. Like I really feel like this is just kind of too wet over here. So I'm going to have to bring a little bit more color back in over here, more paint. And it's still going to bleed and follow because it's still a little damp, but I didn't like how watered down that looked. I want a little bit more heavy color. I'm just touching it up. You never want to overwork a watercolor paper because it can rip on you. Anytime there's a lot of water on paper, it has the potential to rip. So definitely be aware of that and be cautious of that and watch what it's doing while you work. Now, while this is drying, I can leave it and watch it. I can also, for something extra, if the paint is wet in spots, you can take a tiny sprinkle of salt and just drop it in the wet paint. It has to be wet for this to work. So any spots that dried already won't pick this up. That's okay. Just a little bit, sprinkle a little bit more maybe over here and see what I get. And when that dries, you brush it off, and you'll get little kind of tiny star-shaped speckles in those areas because the salt will soak up some of that paint. So we'll just sit here and let that dry, and I'll show it to you when it's done.